Hi guys, meet me again, Cindy Himawan. So today's our topic is about business continuity planning and the risk management. Okay, so business continuity planning usually we'll call with the BCP. Okay, so the BCP itself actually can be done in a two phase of the company. The first one is when the company starting the business. Okay, so after the company define the business models, define the enterprise architecture, like what kind in the business model, it's talking about how the business will going on. And then after that, we can define the IT needed, or sometimes we call as an enterprise architecture, usually talking more about the technology. And then after that, we need to define the BCP. So in the business model, it's talking about how we build our business, but in the BCP, we are talking about how we make sure that our business can be continued even though there is something happen, or we call it as a risk happen. Okay, and then the second one is happen during the risk. Okay, during the uh, we call it undetected risk. Okay, because example like this pandemic. Okay, many of the company cannot predict that the pandemic will be happen, right? And in fact, maybe all of us, okay, all of the human, all of the company, all of the government never predict that there will be a pandemic happen. And so it's mean sometimes it's possible that when the very first time we define the BCP, we might miss the risk. Okay, we might miss something until it's really happened. Okay, so when the risk really, when we find a new risk happen, it means it's also a new time to redefine our BCP. Okay, the new risk here is talking about if example we found a new error, we find a new fault from a new mistake from our employee, or sometimes it will be related to the audit process. Okay, so during the audit process, usually we will check again our BCP because we want to know whether we already defined the risk or not. Okay, so it's possible that we never mention or we never plan for that risk because we never thought of that risk, or maybe we miss since the very beginning. Okay, I will give the example later during the during after we define what is risk. Okay, so let's start with the definition of BCP. The BCP itself, it's example of this picture. The BCP is actually defining as example if our risk is rain. Okay, so we need to make sure that ourselves prepare when the rain happen. Okay, so that's why the BCP will be defined into two steps. There is a pre-incident and post-incident. Okay, so it's mean before the risk happen or before the rain happen, we need to prepare ourselves. We need to know uh, what what might be happen. Is it only rain, or is it really heavy rain, or is it really rain with the storm, or rain with the lightning or something that we need to prepare ourselves. And if it's possible also, can we prevent it? Okay, and if it's possible to be avoid, then it's good, but if not, then at least our business still continue. Okay, so example, if we know our risk is rain, so at least we can prepare our umbrella, or maybe if umbrella is not enough, then maybe we need to prepare our raincoat, or if raincoat not enough, then maybe instead of using a motorcycle, then we need to prepare our car. and so on and so on. That is talking about our strategy to be resilient. Okay, so the resilience means that uh, our business still reliable, our business still available, even though there's risk happen, even though there's something happen to our business. And then second one is talking about the post incident. It means that the after the incident happened, so after the rain happened, after the rain pouring, so what next? Okay, so it will be started with the initial response. The initial response is talking about the very first response, the very first action that we have when the risk happen. Okay, so the example, if the rain happen, so what is the very first action? Is it we are panic? Is it we are looking where is our umbrella? Or we can easily know that, okay, the drizzle coming, then we just easily find our umbrella, open it, and everything is going back normal. Okay, it means that the emergency response is talking about if the attack happen, if the problem happen, what is the very first action that we need to do? Okay, and by having a BCP, we can be more calm. The company can be easily handled, even though the risk happen. Okay, so that's why it's saying uh, there will be a senior management that will be support, or there will be a specific organization. Okay, there will be organization team that will be responsible when the risk happen. Example, so when the rain happen, who will open the umbrella? Is it okay if everyone can open the umbrella? Because it might be chaos, right? Because it might be like everyone can be uh, maybe the one never know how to open the umbrella, or maybe the one never know whether needs to open the small umbrella or whether to open the big umbrella. So that's why usually it will be responsible by specific organization team, because the organizational team will go through the training, through the testing, and also through the maintenance. Okay, so the organizational team already trained how to open the umbrella itself. Okay, so that's why the initial response will be handled by the specific organization team. And then after that, there will be a continuity response, okay, whereby the continuity response means that the company at least can meet the critical operational objective. We are talking about the main value that we already offer to the customer, at least can be met, even though there is a rain. Okay, so we need to make sure. That's why if you still remember, when we do the value proposition to our customer, we need to rank what is the main value that we are going to offer to the customer, right? Example, we have four value. Example, we have the always available, delivery fast, cheaper price, and example, another one is better quality. So example, we have the four value that we want to offer. Then we need to rank it, right? Which one is the main value and which one is the nice to have value. Okay, so during the continuity response, during the rain, it still happen. At least we can still give the main value. Okay, so if our value is example is the better quality, so it's mean at least that quality will never be changed, even though it's rain. Okay. So it's possible another three value can be compromised, but at least the main value can be met. Okay, and then the recovery response, if you see here, it seems like it could be the recovery response is example, if the rain is going to stop, we know that the rain is going to stop, and maybe the so we need to prepare ourselves. So how to recover ourselves? So if previously we only can give the value of better quality, now how to make sure that the delivery can be fast again? How to make sure that the price can be cheap again? Okay, so that is talking about the ongoing operational requirement in the recovery. So after the rain stop, after the risk stop, how we are going to catch our uh, our previous lateness, our previous mistake and other things. Okay, so in the BCP, so that's why in the definition of the BCP, it will saying that the BCP is say as an ongoing process because it will not be done only one time, but it can be done as long as the company is still operating, and there will be a organization team that will be handle it, whereby the process is to identify what is the impact of the rain, what is the impact of the risk, and then we need to define what is our recovery strategy and plan, and ensure that it will uh, and ensure that our business service still can be continued. Okay, so basically it's like preparing before the risk happen, and then continue even the risk happen, and then recovering after the risk is stopped. Okay, and how it can be resilience, how the company can be resilient, it means we have to go through the plan, we need to training it, we need to test it, and we need to maintenance it, we need to update our plan again. Example, at very first time we define if there is a rain we need to use umbrella, but maybe our plan is about using the umbrella is not viable again. Okay, that's why it's saying as a viable. Viable means that is it still applicable at this time or not? Example, if previously I'm alone, maybe if the rain happened, my plan is I'm going to run, okay, because I don't have anyone with me. I'm just going to run and that's it. Maybe it's faster rather than I need to open my umbrella. Example. But now example, I have another one with me. Let's say I have a baby with me. So it's mean it's not possible for me to just run. Maybe I need to really open umbrella. But maybe the small umbrella will do because my baby is still small. But now we need to think again if our kid is already big. So it's not possible to using the small umbrella, right? So in the same thing, it's not possible if our business is already big, we're not possible to use small umbrella. So our plan need to be updated. Our plan that need to be maintenance uh, continuously. Okay. Then so the BCP will be covering about the plan and the most there will be some of the activity inside of the plan, but the main is talking about the business impact assessment, how we need to define the risk, the impact, and so on and so on. I will explain about this later. And then we need to define what is the method and the means that we're going to use, or we are talking about what is the standard that we are going to use. Okay, uh, the standard here is talking about what kind of umbrella that we are going to use here. We need to define it. So we cannot just define an just just normal umbrella, but we need to make sure what kind of umbrella we need. So what kind of strategy, what kind of standard that we can use. So usually in the if the company refer to the example, if our company is a medicine, let's say our company is KB Pharma, usually they already talking about they already have the standard that they can refer to. So if the risk happens, so what kind of standard that they will need to define, they need to refer to. Okay, and then we need to define the testing. So we are trying it, talking about like example if there is fire, so whether our employee already be trained or not. Our employee can know how to respond of the fire, or they know to respond when the hacker coming, or they know how to respond when the pandemic happen. Okay, so we need to testing them. And then the organization talking about who will be responsible, and then the procedure and the method here is talking about the control that we're going to do. So we will define it. And the control here is talking about the procedure, the step by step, the action that we're going to do. But then the physical preparation is talking about, do we need exact example, do we need the backup facility side? Okay, it's talking about the physical things here. It's talking about the umbrella itself. It's talking about if there is a fire, do we need the fire extinguishers? Do we need like the hydrant? Do we need the server? Do we need the paper to record manually? Example like that. Okay, so we need to define the physical things as our infrastructure. Okay, so the flow of BCP will be start with the planning, and then we define the risk assessment and the business impact analysis, and then we do the plan strategies, or we define the control, and we do the testing and maintenance, and then we doing the awareness and training. So during the testing, we need to make sure that our plan is successful or not. Okay, so after we make sure that our plan is uh, we are confident with our plan, then we can train to the rest employee. Okay, because usually this one will be handled by the specific organization team, and this one will be spread to the all employee. Okay. So this is the organization team that we are talking about. There will be an incident response team. So there will be the very first one who will action when the incident happened. So quote unquote is the one who will open the umbrella, or who will be uh, who will find the fire extinguishers, who will on the backup server, and so on and so on. Talking about the incident response team. And then it's talking about the emergency, sorry, this one is typo, emergency action team. It's been talking about the first action here is talking about the physical things. The incident response is usually is the one who make the decision, and the emergency action is talking about who will do physically. Okay, and then there will be another team like the security, the assessment. There will be a software team, there will be a hardware team, there will be a communication team, the one who will communicate to the employee not to be panicked, uh, how to give the who will give the information, and so on. There will be a transportation team talking about if there will be a logistic to be transported or distributed, then who will responsible for it, and so on and so on. Okay, and also there will be a training, who will responsible for the training. Sorry. And then talking also about there will be a legal affair. It's mean usually it will be related to the audit things. Okay, because the legal affair here will be talking about the standard that we're going to use. Okay, next we're going to do the risk assessment. So we need to do the identify the risk. It's mean we need to know what kind of risk that might be happen. Okay, whether it will be related to the environment, related to the physical, and so on. And then we need to analyze. We need to evaluate or rank the risk, and then we need to treat. We need to make the action for the risk, and then monitoring. Okay, let's start with the identify the risk. So the risk itself can be differentiate into these six things. Compliant is talking about the procedure, about the standard, about the control. Okay, so it means the risk that might be happen inside the compliance, the risk that might be happen inside the control. Okay, example. Uh, example, if we don't have any control of example, our business is talking about, okay, example, when you look about the tax problem, yeah, about that Mr. G. Okay, so when the problem happened in the tax ministry that time, is happened because there is no control. Okay, because the one who received the report from the customer, the one who approved the tax report, who wants to who the responsible about the calculating the tax, also the one who responsible to receive the money and give the receipt also is one person. So that's why if the whole process is handled by one person, it's mean there will be a risk in the compliance itself. Example about the contractual means that how about if our vendor or if our customer break our rules, or how about if our employee break their contract. Okay, so that is talking about the risk in the compliance. Okay, so any any risk or any problem related to the compliance, to the standard, to the procedure, to the policy. Okay, and then the second risk is talking about the financial, about the money. So it will be related to the loss of money, lost revenue, lost opportunity, lost customer, lost shareholder equity, lost the saham, yeah, lost shareholder equity. So basically, it's talking about the loss for the money. And then the risk in operational is talking about the how about if we lose the people. Okay, it means that example our people getting injured or our people uh, move from our company, so we don't have any more expert and so on. And then the risk happen in the internal process. It's mean that how about if our process getting wrong, how if our process uh, we put wrong data into our system, or maybe how if our machine is getting broken. Okay, it's talking about this one, the process. And then the operation of the supply chain is talking about how if our vendor cannot supply us anymore, how if our transportation system is not working, how about if our customer uh, suddenly cannot receive their goods because the warehouse is still full. Okay, so example, they already have the agreement, but then example, there's something happen with our customer and we cannot and the customer cannot receive our goods. So what will be happen? And then the risk in the strategic, it means that if example there will be a new competitor. Okay, and then we might possible to lose our market share, right? And then uh, so the risk sometimes it's also can be defined not only negative risk but also in the positive risk. So example, we get the offer from a new partnership. So what will be happen? Example, I get the investor from a big company. So whether I want to receive it or I don't want to receive it. Okay, so it's talking about the partnership. And then talking about the reputation, it means that how about if let's say there is a bad review or bad feedback about our product, so what we're going to do. The technical things here is talking about if there is a cyber crime, there's a hacking, there is example, even our IT itself can be hack dihack sama orang IT kita sendiri ya. So it's talking about the cybercrime. How about if our money suddenly gone from our system, and then how about if our password suddenly hacked and it be and our signature our electronic signature used to approve some transaction. Okay, so basically it will be talking about the software. So how about if we have the risk in our e-business? So example, our website will be hacked, our uh, server down, or maybe our internet is down. It's talking about the infrastructure. Yeah, our how about if there's no electricity? And then the asset is the fixed asset here is talking about how if our building compromised with the fire, with the robbery, apa perampokan ya, or maybe with the flood, banjir. So what will be happen if our fixed asset uh, compromise? And then the IT here usually talking about the whole IT, yeah. It's not only the software but also the hardware, also about the controlling. So the overall IT is talking about the whole system. And then the money here is usually the money here is physical money. So in the financial, so the differentiate with the money in the financial here is usually talking about the money in the system. So it's not a physical money that lost, but the money here is talking about the physical money. Oke, jadi uangnya benar-benar hilang gitu. Jadi uangnya misalnya kalau di bank berarti misalnya perampokan gitu ya. Jadi uangnya benar-benar diambil, fisik uangnya. Tapi kalau yang di financial ini belum tentu physical uang. Jadi bisa saja tadi bentuknya misalnya revenue, opportunity gitu ya. Jadi sesuatu yang lebih ke arah berhubungan dengan uang tapi tidak physical gitu. Mungkin masih ada di dalam sistem atau mungkin tadi berhubungan dengan misalnya apa seharusnya saya dapat uang sekian tapi saya nggak jadi dapat karena kontraknya batal misalnya, itu berhubungan dengan opportunity ya. Atau kalau saham ini kan sebenarnya bentuknya juga belum uang ya, bentuknya masih ya saham, lembar saham gitu, jadi bukan fisik uang. Okay, so there are 6 type of risk that can be happen in your company. So for each of you, okay, so please define at least one risk for each person. Yeah, so for each person in your group, please define at least one risk that might be happen in your company. Okay, so this is about the error, failure, and risk. Okay, so how to define the risk is actually we need to define from the error first. Okay, so it will be start with the error. Usually the risk will be happen because there is error that can be from the human error, from the malice, and also can be the change of environment. Okay, so these two things is usually is doing by human. Okay, human error, it means that if we do something error, then it will make the operation error. Okay, so example, if I make some mistake when I input the data into the system, then it's possible that my operation can be error. Okay, or example, if let's say during the software testing, okay, we have a bug, our software is still having a bug or fault, but then we just ignore it. Okay, so that's why it become our remaining bugs. Okay, so if we make a software and then the software is still having an error or still having a bug, but then we don't do anything. It's possible because it will be too expensive, uh, or maybe it's we cannot detect it from the beginning, so that's why it's possible the bug is still remaining and it will become the risk. Okay. uh, or example, Malais is talking about example, someone is hacking our system. Okay, so the risk is become the crime. Or maybe it's possible if there's a disaster, like there's a flood, there's a earthquake or something, and or maybe it's possible if there's a new regulation from the government, there is a new procedure from the government, there's a new law from the government. So that's why it's possible that our system can be break, our system can be stopped. Okay, so the risk, if the risk happen, then it make our business become failure. Okay, so that's why it's possible. If it's possible, then we need to do what we call it the controlling to prevent our business can be stopped. Okay, so the failure is means that the failure means that the business will be stopped. Okay, so that's why is it possible if we prevent the risk happen? So if it's possible, then we will prevent the failure will be happen. Okay, so that is the relationship between error, failure, and the risk. Error is the cause. Risk is something that might. Failure is sorry. Maybe it's better to start from the failure. Failure is when the business stop. Okay, and then or the business. So example. So failure is more on the impact. Okay, so example saying that the failure is when we cannot deliver on time. Why? Why is the risk? Okay, the risk is the cost of the failure. It means that, okay, uh, the failure is the delivery not on time. Yeah, here delivery late. Okay, and then uh, so we need to define what kind of risk that might cause the company delivery late. Example, it can be caused by the example the system cannot print the system cannot print the delivery order report. Okay, the delivery order report is the paper. Usually when we want to send the goods, we need to print the DO report first, right? We need to print the delivery order. But if the system cannot print the delivery order report, then it means that it's possible our delivery become late. But then we need to trace back again. How come our system cannot print the DO report? It's possible because maybe somebody put the wrong data. Okay, it means talking about the human error. Or maybe somebody really hacking into our system that then we cannot print our DO. Or it's also possible if our server is down. So because the electricity is the electricity is off, so we cannot the server is down, then we cannot print the DO report. Okay, so it's talking about the disaster here. So when the error happen, the risk is something that uh, disturb our business, and the failure is talking about what is the impact to the business. Okay. So this is the example of how it related to the uh, what the failure sorry from the error, risk, and the failure. Okay, so it's saying that sometimes the risk is not only can be happen from the internal. So even though example our company is the ABC company. So if in the previous in this picture we saying that the risk happen can be from the internal, right? But example, we don't have any problem at all. We already cover all the control in the internal company, but we need to be aware as long as we use the e-commerce system or as long as our system is open to other company, so it will have a possibility of risk. Okay, example, when we're talking about the uh, example, this is the ABC company having a relationship with the 123 company. So if we see here, uh, there's no error in the ABC company. Okay, but if the error is, if example the 123 company is doing the automated transaction without checking, so there's no control, so all the transaction is moving into ABC company without any checking, it means it's possible that our input data in our company also can be wrong. Okay, so uh, example also, if example then we have another relationship with the XYZ company, and there is inconsistency data that done by the XYZ company, it's also possible that our later on our master data can be mistake. Okay, not because our wrong, but it's because they are wrong. Okay, so that's why we need to aware whenever we have a connection to other company, we need to make sure that we're not only thinking about the risk from our internal company, but also we need to be aware that the risk can be happen from the external. So that's why it's important to have a control here to make sure that if there is no checking from the other company, we still need to check it. If so, even though the XYZ having giving us the inconsistency data, so we need to block it. Don't just accept it. Okay, because if our e-commerce database is mistake, then it will make our transaction also error, and then it will make our report also wrong. Okay, so it's possible. And then if we check again, it's also possible if there is a customer. Okay, example, the customer is doing offline transaction. Example, the customer is contact the company using email or using WhatsApp, and then it's possible that the operator having a mistake input. So it's mean we need to have a control again here to make sure that even though our operator making a mistake, so it will not make our e-commerce data become mistake. Or example again, if if there is a criminal trying to put illegal access, so it's mean the hacker is coming from the customer side. Okay, so there will be an illegal access. So we need to make sure that we have a control here. Okay, so you see here that when we have an open connection system, whether it from our customers or whether it comes from our partner, we need to have a double protection. We need to have a double control, because the error is not only from our inside company, but it also can be from from the other side of the company. Okay, so now let's continue to the risk matrix. The risk matrix here is actually talking about how we're going to define the business impact analysis. Yeah. Uh, so we need to define the risk based on the likelihood. The likelihood is the possibility of it happen, and the consequences. So the likelihood is talking about the time, whereby the consequences here is talking about the impact. Okay, so for the likelihood, we can differentiate into five category. The first one is rare, could happen, but probably never will. Example, if we're talking about the risk of flood, banjir ya. If your business is online, so maybe actually the flood can be happen. Okay, we can, or maybe example, your business is in Lembang, whereby Lembang is quite high and usually there will be no flood. So it means we can put the flood as rare because it might not, probably never will be happen. Okay, and then how about the earthquake? Well, because the Lembang is nearby the mountain, so maybe it's possible to have an earthquake. Okay, so maybe we can put as unlikely or possible. Okay, so actually, by using this matrix later on, we can identify whether do we need to take an action for the risk or not. Example, if we define the risk is flood, okay, so even though our business is in Lembang ya, so even though if example ini apes-apesnya gitu ya, bener-bener tiba-tiba beneran Lembang banjir, padahal biasanya nggak pernah banjir, tapi begitu ada banjir maka akan fatal gitu misalnya, akan fatal. Kenapa? Iya karena servernya ada di rumah. Jadi kalau banjir ya nanti rumahnya kebanjiran, artinya impactnya fatal ya, fatality-nya tinggi, severe. Maka actionnya bisa jadi kita akan action medium. Okay. But if example, we know that the risk is rare and also the potential is not significant, maybe we can put it as low. Okay, maybe we can just put it as ya udahlah nanti aja gitu ya. Contohnya gini, suatu hari tahun lalu mungkin ya, tahun lalu itu ada banjir besar di Tangerang ya, di bagi area Banten, and which is itu kena di satu perusahaan yang itu parah banget sampai jadi ini perusahaan TV, kemudian dia sampai sebenarnya dia sudah memang daerah itu daerah langganan banjir, jadi sudah ditinggiin dari jalan raya ke kantor itu sudah naik hampir 1 meter. Dari parkiran ke kantor itu naik lagi. Ya, terus kantor mereka juga ada 4 lantai, jadi harusnya udah cukup aman. Ternyata terus mereka punya punya menara buat pemancar gitu ya, karena perusahaan TV itu juga sudah dinaikin gitu ya. Tapi sampai akhirnya ternyata banjir kemarin tuh yang parah banget, saya lupa 2019 atau 2018, itu terjadi sampai lantai 2 mereka tuh tertutupi, kantornya tertutupi. Jadi banjirnya itu hampir sekitar 10 meter. Sehingga semua komputer, mobil gitu ya, bahkan menaranya itu kerendam semuanya. Okay. Dan kalau ditanya banjir itu jadi terjadi nggak? Nah, sebenarnya kalau kita lihat dari sisi likelihood gitu ya, dari sisi likelihood dia masuknya adalah ke rare gitu ya. Kenapa? Karena biasanya banjir ya memang banjir tapi cuma di jalan raya. Jadi nggak akan mungkin sampai ke dalam itu, nggak pernah gitu ya. Karena biasanya paling tinggi paling banjir ya 3 meter dan mereka sudah aman. Kalau mereka sudah naikin itu sampai 4 meter dari jalan raya, 3 meter dari jalan raya sampai ke kantor masuk gitu ya, itu sekitar 3 meter. Jadi sudah oke gitu ya. Jadi mereka bisa bilang kemungkinan banjir itu rare. Walaupun banjirnya ada ya, tapi maksudnya banjir itu nggak akan masuk ke kantor, makanya disebutnya akan rare. Tapi memang, kalau memang sampai itu terjadi, maka sebetulnya fatality-nya akan severe. Severe ya, karena severe ini karena ya kalau banjir maka perusahaannya nggak bisa jalan gitu ya. Kalau kebanjiran tuh artinya bukan kebanjiran jalan raya, tapi kalau sampai beneran masuk semua, sampai artinya lebih dari 3 meter, maka akan severe memang. Sehingga actionnya adalah medium. Mediumnya apa tadi actionnya? Ya udah dinaikin aja. Jadi misalnya tadi ya sudah dinaikin, kantor sudah dinaikin, menara sudah dinaikin. Semua alat-alat ditaruh di lantai 2. Jadi yang lantai 1 itu kalau bisa nggak ada alat-alat rekaman gitu-gitu ya. Jadi itulah medium. Tapi kemudian kalau ditanya, kenapa nggak diasuransikan? Kenapa nggak misalnya apa ya, kenapa nggak bikin misalnya yang canggih gitu ya, misalnya yang parkir mobilnya itu dibikin bisa melayang gitu, supaya mobil-mobil di situ, mobil-mobil buat karyawannya gitu ya, mobil buat cari berita gitu kan, mobil-mobil itu kenapa nggak dibikin atap yang melayang juga gitu, supaya parkirannya di atas juga. Nah, kenapa? Karena kalau dihitung-hitung, ternyata biaya asuransi, misalnya nih, dalam 1 tahun tuh bayar asuransi berapa sih? Kalau diasuransiin semuanya ya, satu gedung, mobil, dan lain sebagainya, itu asuransinya berapa? Kemudian, kalau misalnya kita mesti ngebangun sampai ada parkiran yang double gitu-gitu ya, itu total-total berapa sih? Padahal sebenarnya banjir ini baru terjadi selama sekitar 20 tahun perusahaan ini berdiri, baru sekali ini yang parah banget. Baru sekali ini yang terjadi. Sehingga kalau dihitung-hitung sebenarnya ya udah lebih murah, tanda kutip ya, lebih murah ngebuang mobil, lebih murah ngebuang satu lantai gitu ya, daripada kita mesti bayar, daripada kita mesti asuransi selama 20 tahun, daripada kita mesti bikin tadi parkiran yang tingkat dan lain sebagainya. Sehingga bisa jadi strateginya masuknya ke medium, walaupun fatality-nya memang severe ya. Gitu. Nah, this risk matrix is actually help us to decide what is the next strategy. Okay, so whether we need to do a low, medium, high, or very high. Okay, it will be defined by this matrix. So in the potential consequences, we will have 5 things. Not significant. Not significant tuh artinya hanya minor injuries. Okay. No medical treatment needed. Jadi kalau tadi misalnya kayak kalau banjirnya cuma di jalan raya, ya cuma nggak nyaman aja gitu ya, tapi sebenarnya nggak masalah. Kemudian kalau minor berarti ada temporary impairment, tuh berarti ada sempat berhenti dulu bisnisnya. Jadi kalau tadi bisnis TV tadi misalnya disebutnya not significant karena ya udah, karena masih bisa dilakukan di dalam gedung. Tapi kalau yang temporary impairment berarti benar-benar nggak bisa berjalan. Kalau yang moderate, ini biasanya bicara kalau memang ada kondisi fisik yang menyebabkan harus ada hospital admission. Atau berarti di sini benar-benar bisnisnya harus terhenti, bukan hanya temporary tapi cukup lama ya. Karena tadi misalnya ada orang-orang yang terluka yang cukup parah. Kemudian di sini kalau ada permanent impairment, jadi kalau memang kita kehilangan pegawai atau kita kehilangan aset yang secara permanen, misalnya gedungnya rusak sampai benar-benar rusak. Kalau misalnya hanya sedikit rusak gitu ya, itu temporary, masih bisa berjalan, masih oke. Tapi kalau permanen berarti benar-benar misalnya gedungnya roboh gitu ya, harus dibangun total. Kalau yang fatality biasanya sih sudah berhubungan dengan yang ya bisnisnya terhenti sama sekali, tidak bisa berjalan, kemudian banyak yang meninggal misalnya. Oke, jadi makanya disebutnya sebagai fatality-nya severe. Okay, so later on, after you define what is the risk type that might be happen, and then define in the risk matrix here. So you will define whether the risk is going to be low, medium, high, or very high. Okay, and then so when we want to do the risk management strategy, this is talking about the negative risk first. Okay, so there are four things that might be happen. There are four strategies that can be done. The first one is avoid. Okay, we're trying to reject the situation. If possible, we don't want to get any risk. Okay, kalau bisa nggak kena banjir, kalau bisa nggak ada hujan. Okay, jadi misalnya kayak bisa nggak pakai pawang hujan. Misalnya kalau kita perusahaan-perusahaan pupuk ya, saya pernah. Salah satunya memang kalau di perusahaan pupuk ini kalau kan harus dijemur ya. Jadi kalau bisa di avoid, gimana caranya? Pakai pawang hujan misalnya, di avoid ya. Atau ya kalau misalnya enggak ya, misalnya pakai garam udara gitu yang ditaburkan supaya hujannya jangan pas di saat kita menjemur pupuk misalnya. Jadi avoid, we trying to reject the situation. And transfer, it's mean that we cannot avoid the risk, but we ask someone else to take chance of loss. Okay, jadi risknya nggak bisa di avoid, tetap harus hujan, banjir ya tetap harus banjir. Kalau misalnya api gitu ya, kebakaran ya mau nggak mau tetap harus kebakaran, tapi ada orang lain yang menanggung loss-nya atau kita sebut sebagai subcon atau insurance. Okay, we can transfer the risk but not the liability for the failure. Jadi maksudnya gedungnya tetap hancur ya hancur. Okay, tapi at least untuk membangun gedungnya it's covered by the insurance company. Okay, so that is the very easy to transfer the things. And then mitigates talking about we reduce. So we cannot avoid, maybe we can reduce it gitu. Jadi kalau tadi misalnya banjir tuh nggak bisa di avoid. Jadi gimana reduce-nya? Ya dinaikin aja jalannya, misalnya kantornya dinaikin. Itu supaya impact-nya jadi reduce. Okay. Kemudian ada yang accept ini berarti ya udah terima aja gitu ya. Karena sometimes yang tadi ya yang saya bilang di perusahaan TV tadi, dia sudah berusaha untuk mitigate dengan naikin jalan, tapi dia nggak pakai transfer, dia nggak pakai insurance. Kenapa? Karena biaya transfer akan lebih mahal, biaya covering insurance akan lebih mahal dibandingin dia accept. Disebutnya take your chances. Ya udahlah, gue ambil resikonya deh gitu ya. Jadi misalnya Anda kan hitung-hitung, kalau Anda pakai insurance itu bayarnya berapa. Tapi misalnya Anda yakin bahwa kayaknya saya nggak akan sakit kok. Jadi dibandingin saya mesti bayar setiap bulan insurance, ya udahlah saya take chance aja. Kalau misalnya saya sakit ya udah saya terpaksa bayar gitu ya. Disebut dengan accept. Okay, so when we have the negative risk, so we can define later ya. You can define whether you want to avoid, you want to transfer, you want to mitigate, or you want to accept it. And then there is a positive risk. The positive risk is actually, okay, so sometimes the risk is always defined at something bad. Okay, it's always talking about something not good. But then actually, we also can say that another possibility is when we do the business is talking about the positive risk. The positive risk is talking about the situation that could give a great opportunities, okay, if we can handle it effectively, harness or handle it effectively. So example, when we talk about this pandemic, okay, When we talk about maybe the industry of uh, industry of apa industry of what uh, airplane. Okay, the airplane getting the negative risk. Yes, because people cannot travel anywhere, right? So that's why if we're talking about the airplane company, so we need to handle the negative risk. But when we're talking about example, Zoom, okay, when this pandemic happened, Zoom is getting positive risk instead of negative risk. But it will only giving us a great opportunities if we can handle it properly. If example Zoom company cannot handle this risk, then it's also the same thing. The example servernya nggak diperkuat gitu ya. Misalnya dulu banyak yang namanya apa kebobolan gitu ya. Ada orang yang bisa masuk ke Zoom sembarangan. Ada orang yang bisa ngehack datanya dari Zoom dan lain sebagainya. Kalau Zoom nggak ambil strategi untuk positive risk ini ya sama aja. Dia akan ngalamin sesuatu yang nggak baik. So that's why even though we have the positive risk, we still need to handle it. So in the positive risk, okay, so we can define also the four things. Uh, Exploit. Okay, exploit means that we want to respond and we want to make sure that the risk happen. Okay. Uh, Example, exploit means that we accept it. Sorry, exploit means uh, because we cannot avoid it. Okay, so we need to accept it. Misalnya gini, we accept it, but we are not doing many changes. Sorry, that one is accept, yeah. So if let's say we accept it, okay, but we are doing nothing response. Jadi ini permintaannya tambah banyak nih, tapi memang kita nggak punya employee lagi, server kita udah pas-pasan gitu ya, misalnya nih. Jadi kita sudah nggak bisa ngapa-ngapain, ya udah. Jadi kita cuma bilang sorry saya cuma bisa kasih segini, oke? Karena mesin saya nggak cukup lagi. Misalnya ada permintaan, misalnya kalau sekarang kemarinnya di awal-awal ada permintaan masker gitu ya besar-besaran. Ya emang nggak bisa diapa-apain lagi karena emang kita nggak punya uang untuk beli mesin lagi misalnya. Tapi kalau misalnya kita punya uang untuk beli mesin atau kita mampu untuk ayo hire lagi employee lebih banyak gitu ya. So it's mean we will enhance it gitu ya. Ini disebut dengan enhance. Kalau kita mau uh, getting more opportunity gitu ya. Jadi kita enhance it. Kita beli kalau ada permit kayak Zoom mungkin dia beli server baru, dia hire IT baru gitu ya, dia tambah-tambahin feature yang baru itu disebut dengan enhance. Atau mungkin ada yang disebut dengan share, artinya kita outsource. Jadi kita bilang, aduh sorry saya nggak bisa, maka saya coba outsource deh ke tempat yang lain gitu ya. Jadi perusahaan saya sudah penuh, saya nggak bisa handle, dan kalau saya mau perbesar mesin, saya mau perbesar gudang juga itu biaya terlalu mahal. Sedangkan saya nggak tahu ini sampai kapan permintaannya, maka saya bisa share, saya bisa outsourcing ke tempat yang lain gitu ya. Jadi mirip seperti yang transfer tadi ya, jadi orang lain yang nanggung. Kalau tadi nanggung yang nggak enak ya, kalau sekarang share berarti kita berbagi opportunity. And then exploit ini jadi ya berbeda dengan kalau accept tadi kita hanya apa ya? Kalau accept kan kita tidak melakukan apa-apa, we just do nothing gitu ya. Jadi kita cuman ya udah menjalankan semaksimal aja gitu ya, tapi tidak melakukan apa-apa. Enhancing berarti kita memperbanyak. Kalau share berarti kita melimpahkan ke perusahaan lain. kalau yang exploit ini sebenarnya kita cuman menunggu gitu ya. Jadi kayak kita coba lihat dulu ini apakah mungkin dilakukan atau tidak gitu. Jadi biasanya exploit ini disebutnya sebagai response strategy gitu ya, karena dia biasanya apa ya, dia nggak langsung melakukan gitu ya, tapi dia coba melihat dulu ini mungkin dilakukan atau tidak gitu ya. Jadi kalau misalnya nih, uh, oke, kalau tadi contohnya perusahaan masker ya, kalau accept itu berarti kan kita kita nggak berusaha untuk mengiklankan perusahaan kita gitu ya, karena kita nggak mau ngapa-ngapain gitu. Jadi ya udah sekarang ada permintaan masker, saya kasih gitu ya. Tapi kalau yang exploit ini biasanya memang respon strategi pertama yang biasanya dia akan apa ya? Dia akan mikir dulu, bisa nggak ya dilakuin enhance gitu ya. Kalau memang nggak bisa enhance, ya biasanya akan dia akan doing something yang apa ya? How to say? Wait. Biasanya gini, kalau yang exploit ini dia akan berusaha untuk kalau bisa dia tidak perlu buang effort seperti yang enhancing gitu. Jadi kalau enhancing itu kan dia menerima tapi dia juga melakukan effort besar-besaran. Oke. Tapi kalau yang exploit ini dia berusaha menerima tapi dia nggak mau melakukan effort yang besar-besaran gitu. Jadi maksudnya dia akan berusaha untuk cari cara. Jadi sebenarnya exploit, share, dan enhance ini sebenarnya sama-sama menerima, sama-sama ingin mendapatkan opportunity itu. Kalau yang enhance dengan beli mesin baru, kalau yang share dia kasih outsourcing ke temennya, ke perusahaan temen. Kalau yang exploit ini dia putar cara supaya dia nggak perlu share ke perusahaan lain, tapi dia juga nggak perlu beli mesin yang baru gitu ya. Makanya tadi saya agak susah untuk menjelaskan ya. Jadi ya gimana caranya dia bisa mendapatkan benefit ini, tapi nggak perlu keluar risiko yang baru, nggak perlu keluarin modal yang baru gitu. Effortnya nggak perlu terlalu banyak lagi gitu. Karena sometimes kalau kita enhancing itu disebutnya effortnya mungkin sometimes terlalu banyak gitu ya. Dan sometimes kita nggak tahu juga apakah ini akan terus-terusan atau tidak. Jadi biasanya exploit ini akan oke, saya terima, tapi gimana caranya saya nggak mau keluar uang terlalu banyak gitu. Jadi beda kalau yang accept tadi ya udah segitu aja gitu ya, dia nggak mikirin cara, dia diam-diam dia tidak melakukan apapun gitu. Ada permintaan masker banyak, dia juga ya udah saya tetap cuma bisanya segini kok, dia cuma segitu aja. Tapi kalau yang exploit ini dia akan mencoba cari cara, jadi entah misalnya apa mungkin daripada hire employee baru, mungkin dia minta employee-nya untuk kerja lebih banyak gitu ya. Jadi dia nggak keluarin cost baru, karena kalau dia harus hire employee baru, dia beli mesin baru, maka ada cost yang double gitu ya. Kalau exploit ini dia lebih kalau bisa pakai aja deh yang udah ada gitu ya. Pakai aja deh aset yang udah ada, gimana caranya saya bisa mengembangkan aja. Atau misalnya yang tadinya saya jualan masker dan jualan apa gitu ya, sekarang misalnya jualan masker sama jualan apa kain katakan, kainnya saya tutup dulu deh supaya masuk ke masker gitu ya. Jadi dia nggak perlu nambah sesuatu yang baru, tapi dia tetap masih bisa mendapatkan uh, opportunity-nya ini. Itu sebenarnya exploit ya. I hope you get the idea ya. Just let me know in the discussion if you still confused about it. Okay, so this is the business impact analysis. It will be showing like this. So example, in the SaaS application, okay, jadi ini hubungannya dengan SaaS software-nya. risk type-nya adalah inherent. Inherent itu sesuatu yang memang akan terjadi gitu ya, memang bisnis bawaannya. So the risk can be defined as the inherent. It means that we can, it's bawaannya gitu. Jadi kalau misalnya bank, ya kemungkinan karena ada kemungkinan pasti dirampok gitu ya. Atau misalnya kalau kita pakai e-commerce, ya kemungkinan misalnya ada hacking gitu ya. Atau kalau di sini misalnya saya contohnya adalah di SaaS application ada error input. Nah, apa yang kemudian, jadi ya wajar ya kalau ada error input gitu. Kemudian kemungkinan terjadinya atau likelihood-nya bagaimana? Berapa sering itu terjadi? Kalau itu sering terjadi misalnya dalam satu waktu berapa kali terjadi, maka kita sebutnya possible. Impact-nya major karena major ini bisa macam impact-nya tadi bisa berhubungan dengan uang, bisa berhubungan dengan bisa berhubungan dengan orang gitu ya. Jadi impact-nya ini sebenarnya kalian tidak harus, kalau tadi kan berhubungannya dengan orang sakit, cacat gitu ya. Bisa juga impact-nya tadi kalau berhubungannya dengan di sini saya sebutkan impact-nya major karena misalnya impact explanation-nya adalah kalau dia salah input maka inventory-nya jadi salah. Kalau inventory-nya salah maka bla bla jadi panjang gitu. Makanya saya masukkan impact-nya ke major. Jadi sebenarnya Anda bisa cek sebaiknya ini impact-nya masuk ke yang mana. It's based on your impact explanation. And then the risk strategy type, kita mau pakai strategi type yang mana? Ya kalau bisa sih di avoid gitu ya. Gimana cara? Apakah kita sudah punya control atau tidak? Having control or not? Misalnya saya bilang sudah punya kontrol. Kalau belum punya kontrol itu artinya kalau salah ya tetap bisa di save gitu ya. Harusnya saya tadi pengennya avoid, berarti harusnya saya sudah punya kontrolnya ya. So how to prove it? Jadi gimana caranya saya yakin bahwa memang tidak ada error gitu, maka saya bisa cek di program specification-nya, emang ada nggak untuk pengecekan tadi ya, emang ada nggak kalau ada input error, maka harusnya nggak boleh di save. Itu saya akan cek di program specification-nya. Kemudian selain itu saya juga bisa buktikan misalnya di error transaction log-nya. Jadi setiap kali ada error, harusnya nanti akan dicatat ya. Jadi kalau ada perbedaan, misalnya SAS-nya masukin 10, ternyata barang dikeluarinnya 20 gitu kan. Berarti kalau ada selisih barang yang keluar, itu masuknya ke error transaction log. Jadi ini program specification ini lebih ke prevention-nya, mencegahnya. Error transaction log ini lebih ke detection-nya ya, mendetek apakah ada kesalahan atau tidak. Kemudian how to gather the evidence berarti saya akan ngecek di sistem dan itu akan dipenuhi oleh orang IT, responsible-nya by IT ya. Jadi kira-kira akan seperti ini yang akan kalian buat. You will define what is the things, the type, and then define the risk type, define the risk error, the likelihood, impact, explanation of the impact, the strategy type. Then we need to define whether the company already have a control or not to avoid this. And then what is the evidence? The evidence here can related to the preventive. Jadi kalau memang mau di avoid, jadi sudah ada belum preventive controlnya? Kalau kemudian ada yang disebut dengan detektifnya ya. Jadi kalau ada error, tercatat nggak errornya? Jadi jangan sampai error juga dibiarin gitu aja gitu ya. And then how to gather the evidence, how to check the evidence, and then who will provide the evidence. Okay, and then in the control classification, it will be differentiated into 3 types. It means when, if example we want to avoid, then we need to define the preventive. Kecuali ya, except we want just to accept it, then we don't need to do the preventive controls. Okay, so just now I already explained that it's possible we just accept the things, and then we might forget, we might not need to do the preventive because we just want to accept it. But if we want to avoid it, of course we need to do the preventive controls. The detective controls, this one needs to be done. So we need to know if there is an error or there is a malicious, there is a hack, there is a crime, there is a disaster, we need to detect it. Okay, and then the corrective control is how to correct the mistakes. So this one is actually related to the recovery things, yeah. How we want to recover, how we want to remedy the problem. We want to check again whether we have the missed calls, the missed raise, okay, and then how we want to enhance, increase our safetyness, increase our security, and so on. And then it's also possible that uh, the control can be overlapping or can be compensating. Yeah, overlapping means that we have a double strong control to handle the same fault. Example, the the uh, the easy analogy is like uh, apa Anda punya sepeda gitu ya, Anda sudah pakai kunci, Anda pakai kunci, itu saya susah ngomong kok sepeda ya, mobil lah ya, mobil sudah pakai alarm, Anda pakai handle yang wheel itu, wheel protectionnya, kemudian misalnya Anda pakai lagi apa gitu ya, fingerprint lagi, nah itu sebenarnya overlapping control. It's okay if example if example we thought that it's more safe if the environment is really not supporting, then it's possible to have overlapping control. It's okay. But if it's not necessary, then it will become more cost. Ya, bayangin ya, tadi mau buka mobil repot banget, mesti pakai fingerprint, pakai retina gitu ya, mesti pakai alarm lagi, pakai kunci stangnya lagi gitu ya, repot banget. Sebenarnya dengan overlapping control. So we need to make sure that our control is just fine. It's just enough, but not too much. And we're talking about the compensating control. It means that it's possible that there will a fault is addressed by a weak control in one side, but then there will be another strong control in another area. Okay. Example that you know, maybe we cannot say that. Okay, example. Uh, Usually the IT room, it might be very secure. Okay, cannot everyone go in and out to the IT room. Okay, IT room tuh biasanya sangat secure. Tapi gimana kalau seandainya memang ruangan kita terbatas sehingga kita nggak bisa punya spesifik IT room. Sehingga misalnya harusnya server itu memang adanya di tempat yang aman, nggak boleh kena disaster, nggak boleh listriknya selalu stabil gitu ya. Nah, tapi bisa aja hal-hal tersebut nggak memungkinkan ya. Jadi sehingga kita bisa melakukan compensating control. Misalnya harusnya server itu nggak boleh mati listrik, harusnya. Jadi harusnya di tempat yang listriknya stabil, harusnya. Tapi ternyata kita nggak cukup punya uang untuk sewa di daerah yang listriknya stabil. Jadi harus gimana dong? Jadi ada weak control di satu sisi, artinya kita harus punya strong control di area yang lainnya. Artinya ya kalau bisa berarti punya genset. Kalau bisa punya minimal punya UPS, minimal punya genset. Oke, jadi itu disebutnya bukan overlapping control. Kalau overlapping control tadi sudah ada kunci, ada alarm, ada lagi gembok. Itu overlapping. Tapi yang compensating ini sebenarnya karena ada satu hal yang nggak bisa terpenuhi, maka kita melakukan kontrol di pihak yang lainnya. Jadi sebenarnya kalau ditanya punya genset itu wajib nggak? Sebenarnya nggak wajib. Kalau misalnya listriknya selalu stabil, tapi kita tetap punya genset, nah itu mungkin bisa disebut sebagai overlapping control ya. Karena kita harus punya cost untuk bikin genset itu kan lebih mahal ya. Ngapain kalau seandainya listrik kita memang stabil, nggak pernah mati listrik. Oke, jadi kalaupun mati listrik itu misalnya itu mungkin 10 tahun cuma sekali. Jadi kalau dibilang secara risk likelihood-nya it's only rarely gitu ya, rare. Jadi ngapain punya genset yang nyalainnya 10 tahun sekali? Oke. Nah, itu bisa disebutnya sebagai overlapping control. Oke. Tapi kalau memang listrik matinya cukup sering, oke, berarti ya harus ada strong control atau strong plan to handle that weak side. Okay. And then this is the complete BCP. It means that we can define we can just now we on in the business impact analysis we only stop until the evidence provider, but now we need to define the control type, the control and procedure, and also the who will be responsible for it. Okay, so we need to define the preventive, the detective, and also the recovery actually. Okay, the recovery control. In here I only put the only two, but actually there should be 3 control to handle for each risk that might be happen. Okay, and then this is the type of recovery side. This is talking about the physical side, the physical things. Yeah. Okay, so usually it can be for the server backup, it can be differentiated into these 5 category. Category 1 is the redundant or mirror. Sebutnya berarti if we have one server and we have another mirror, it's totally the same. That's why it's calling as a redundant. Okay, so when we have a double or redundant server, the recovery time can be fast. It's only in the seconds, at seconds time. Okay, but also the cost will be double. The infrastructure could be the same. Okay, and the equipment also the same. The data will be the same real time because it's totally the same, right? And the operator will be the same. We don't need to do any transfer because basically it's totally the same. We have 2 server exactly the same. Oke, jadi ini misalnya Anda punya server A gitu ya. Jadi misalnya ini data production server. Maka Anda akan punya yang namanya redundant server. Oke, jadi setiap kali ada customer input di sini, ini akan automatically tercopy. That's why it's a real time. Okay, because it will save into 2 server. This is more safe. This is more ideal. Yeah, but of course it's very expensive because it means you have totally same server. And then we can have the server that hot side, warm side, cold side, and mobile side. Okay, ini jadi recovery time-nya itu bisa it's depend ya. Ada yang hot side itu disebutnya hours karena hanya beberapa jam. Oke, dan kalau lihat di sini 4 ini disebutnya transfer karena not real time. Okay, because this is not real time. So example, we have the production server here, and then we have another side. Okay, then it will be backup temporarily. Okay, this will be a backup temporarily. So example for production server, it can be done like mungkin kalau tadi ini real time benar-benar sama ya. Kalau ini backupnya mungkin setiap hari gitu ya di akhir. Kalau yang hot site ini mungkin yang setiap hari backup. Kalau yang website ini ini yang setiap jam di backup. Kalau yang website ini harian backupnya. Kalau yang cold site itu juga mingguan backupnya. Kalau mobile ini sekitar 8 sampai 8 jam atau hari atau berapa hari gitu ya. Mobile site ini biasanya lebih servernya mungkin lebih cloud ya. Biasanya ini hubungannya dengan cloud. Kalau yang empat ini biasanya bentuknya memang physical, memang ada server, ada PC gitu. Nah, jadi seberapa sering kita backup, maka seberapa cepat juga kita bisa meng-recovery. Jadi kalau kita backupnya dalam waktu jam, recovery-nya juga dalam waktu jam. Kalau backupnya harian, maka recovery-nya juga akan harian gitu ya. Dan there possibility that the data will be missed. Karena tadi ya misalnya saya backupnya itu setiap jam 2. Oke, ternyata jam 2 jam setengah 3 gitu. Nanti backup lagi jam 3. Misalnya setengah 3 ada hacker. Sehingga bisa jadi data antara jam 2 sampai setengah 3 tadi hilang. Berikut juga dengan hari ya. Nah, so that's why it's depend on what kind of business that you have, whether you want to use the redundant hot site, warm site, cold site, or mobile site. Karena ini akan mempengaruhi dari segi biaya, dari segi waktu, dari sisi tadi data ya. Okay, so the recovery side here is actually talking about in here we're talking about in here yeah, supposed to be there is a physical side. Okay, because the control here is only talking about the regulation, talking about the procedure, but then it's possible or also actually it's possible if you want to combine in here. Okay, in here I combine the mirror side, so I combine the physical side inside the control, or you can add a separate column. Yeah, you can add another column to put the physical side. So it's which one is easier for you is okay. Okay, and then this is the example of the technical control. You can read later by yourself. So if for the network, what kind of method that we want to use and whether this one is as a preventive, defective, or detective or corrective. Okay, just read first and then let me know if you have any question or you're not familiar with these things. And then after we do the business impact analysis, we define the plan, define the control, and then we need to check. We need to do the testing and maintenance. Okay, so remember that we need to have a periodic testing. Okay, so it's possible we do the testing like we trying to do the penetration testing. Jadi kita bisa cobain kalau misalnya ada hacking gitu. Jadi kita cobain aja. Mungkin kita bisa sewa hacker atau kita bisa cobain aja masukin kalau misalnya ada virus gitu ya, gimana caranya. Okay, so we need to try whether our plan can be successful or not. Okay, so like we can try if we have, of course, if it related to the IT, to the system, usually we can try it, yeah. But if it related to the disaster, of course we cannot do it. But at least we can have exercise, okay. Misalnya latihan kalau ada kebakaran, fire drill gitu ya, maka apa yang akan dilakukan? Kalau misalnya ada banjir, maka apa yang dilakukan? Bisa juga latihan gitu ya, supaya orang-orang terbiasa untuk tidak panik. Okay, and then so during this testing, then we can check whether our plan is good enough or our plan have, so we can get the feedback from the employee, we can get the feedback from the management, so we know that how to update our plan, how we can enhance our safety things. Okay, and then it's also a good things to check our physical. Okay, because sometimes the physical have some problem gitu ya. Misalnya kayak genset, mungkin kalau udah lama nggak pernah dinyalain gitu ya, biasanya akan ada sedikit masalah, nyalainnya tuh mungkin agak sedikit susah. Jadi kalau fisik yang bentuk-bentuknya fisikal itu mungkin harus dites. Jadi misalnya kalau kita akan ngetes kayak fire extinguishers gitu ya, yang buat pemadam itu kan biasanya ada expiry date-nya ya, apakah masih masih bisa digunakan atau tidak. Jadi hal-hal yang bentuknya physical, usually you need to have a double check, okay, because it have a expiry date. Okay, and then after we know that our plan is good enough, then we can make the awareness and we can have a training to the employee. And maybe it's not necessary to be in physical gitu. Kalau tadi ya mungkin kalau fire drill mungkin itu harus physical gitu ya. Tapi kalau also it's possible to be done in the film, using the video, using the newsletter, the poster gitu ya. Makanya biasa suka ditempel kalau ada kebakaran maka harus begini gitu ya. Ada simbol-simbol yang memberi ketenangan gitu ya. Kalau di lift gitu ya, misalnya kalau ada kebakaran jangan gunakan lift, kemudian apa gitu ya, itu biasanya akan ditempel. And then having a promotional item, the lunch meeting, and also remember that we need to have a budget and resources for every period ya. Jadi jangan lupa tadi one of the item in the BCP is talking about funding ya, dananya. Karena kalau nggak ada dananya nggak bisa. Misalnya kayak genset berarti harus ada dana untuk bahan bakarnya. Kalau misalnya kita bicara tentang backup server, maka harus ada dana untuk backup server, baik itu yang bentuknya cloud maupun yang bentuknya physical. Okay, so remember, we need to define the budget and also define who is responsible for it. Okay, so that is our today's topic about business continuity planning and risk management. So hopefully you can do the BCP planning to make sure that the business can be continued well. If you still have any question, please let me know and let's go to the discussion session. Thank you.